Hi, I'm Paul with MadCap Software. If you have been watching the videos in this series on print-based output in MadCap Flare up until now, you know that we have been trying to build this PDF based on a fancy mock-up that my graphic designer gave me. And before that, we did some quick and easy PDF output. So with this fancy PDF output, up until now, we have been really putting together the different pages from the mock-up, from the TOC all the way down to the index, and we've kind of put these pieces together. Now we're entering this final phase, a couple of final phases, where we are going to be joining some things together and applying some settings, and then we'll be able to build. In this video, we are going to be looking at the Outline TOC file, and that's just what I call it to make sense of it. So this is the file in the project organizer in Flare under the TOC folder. Yeah, in print, in online output, it's navigation. It really does kind of function as a TOC, but in print output, it's not a TOC. That we took care of in an earlier video on the generated TOC. That was using a proxy, and we inserted it into a topic. For print output, this is really serving this file as an outline, and it lets you determine, okay, these are the topics that I want to be in this PDF, and this is the order. It also lets us specify certain settings like the page layouts that are associated with the different pages, and as well as auto numbering and page numbers and all that. Now, in the earlier video that we did on quick and easy PDF output, you saw me use the same TOC file for online as print. And what I did was I just added, a file in there, a topic, a link to a topic for print output, and I put a condition on it. So you can do that. You can reuse the same TOC file for multiple outputs, including online and print, and you can separate things using conditions like that. I found that the more the differences that you have, the more differences that you have in your outputs, the clunkier that can be and hard to manage. So what I actually prefer to do is I've got a TOC file for online output, and then for each of my PDFs, I've got a separate one. And that's what we're going to do here, because not only are we going to create this one PDF that we've started out with, but at the very end of this video series, we are going to try to quickly create a few more. And so I'm going to keep those Outline TOC files separate. All right. So now let's go in and let's create an Outline TOC file, and then we'll apply settings to it and be done with that. First thing we're going to do in the project organizer of our project, go down to the TOCs folder. Now, this is the only TOC file that's being used in here. Remember, we just based this on this template that's set up for online output. So I'm actually going to rename this to online. That'll help us keep it separate from our PDF. Now, I am going to copy this, and I'm going to rename it to let's see, I'm going to rename this one to Get Started PDF, because I said before, all right, let's think about the PDF that we're creating maybe as a PDF, a getting started guide. And I just made a copy of it because really, this is a small project. There it is. And it really has the same topics in there. So that's going to save me some work from having to put those in there. But we are going to be adding to this thing, and we'll do that now. So we want to go over to our Content Explorer, and we created these topics ahead of time that we knew we were only going to use in print output. And so we're just going to drag these in here. So I'm going to drag first my title page in there, and then what's after that? Our copyright. And after that is our generated TOC. Okay, so that kind of takes care of our front matter. And now we've got these books and nodes underneath it, and all of these just link to the topics that we have up in here. Now, we also created this chapter number. Remember that chapter auto number? I'm going to drag this in to above the first two, these first two books like that. And so this is going to serve as chapter 1. That's going to serve as chapter 2. And I'm actually going to rename these. Right now they're using a variable, system variable that we'll just put in the title. And I'm going to call this chapter 1. And I'm going to call this chapter 2. Now that text isn't actually going to show up in the output. That's just for me to know what this is for. And it's linking to that topic that has my chapter auto number in it. But if this TOC file were being used in online output, this would matter. This is what would actually show up, what I have in here. Now, these books underneath it, I'm going to use my arrow keys and slide those down so that they are underneath it. Okay, so then if I collapse it, you can see chapter 1, chapter 2, and they've got the contents under them. I also want to put appendix down here, and at the very end, I want index. And that topic for my appendix, big freaking table, I'm going to slide that down here and move it down so it's underneath it. Now, I have chapter 1, chapter 2. I also have down here, I've got procedures and company information. So those will be chapter 3 and 4, but I'm going to add those in later because first I want to put some settings on these just to make it easier so I don't have to repeat my work. And that's going to do it for this part. So next we are going to go in and start applying some settings to these nodes in our TOC in our Outline TOC file. Now that we have our Outline TOC file, we need to come in to these individual pieces, at least some of them, and apply some settings. We need to tell it what page layouts to use. So we're going to be setting page layout breaks, chapter breaks, and some page numbering information as well. So we're going to start at the top, title page. Going to double click on that, opens up the properties. We want to go to the printed output tab. And right at the top, we select either chapter break or page layout break. Well, this isn't a chapter, and it's just limited information we need to provide. So we can just select page layout break. And then under page layout, well, what was it? Well, we put that information in a front matter page layout. And then page type. There are two page types in that front matter page layout. There was title and there was normal. So title was for our title page. Normal was going to hold our copyright information. So I'm going to select title. There's more information down here in this on this tab. We don't need to worry about it. We're just going to click OK and be done with that. Next one, copyright. Now I'm going to open this up. It could be because this topic is using the same page layout as the other one, and it is just the second page, it's the normal one. In some cases, you might not need to set a break here, but thinking back to that topic, it had the logo in it and then copyright text. There weren't any page breaks or page breaks on any of those styles, and I want to prevent any of that content from moving up onto the title page accidentally. So I'm just going to do the safe thing here and select page layout break. And this again is front matter, but now I want that normal page type. That's all I need. Click OK. Next one, the generated TOC. Open that, the properties for that. Break type. This one, I'm actually going to select chapter break, not because it's a chapter, but because once I select chapter break, this page numbering section becomes available to use. And I need that because I want to set some Roman numerals. I want to specify that as the format. So I select chapter break, come down to page layout, and there is TOC, and it's just the normal page type. Don't need to worry about anything else. Now down here, I can reset the page numbering to 1. So once you get to the TOC page, it would start out as page 1. But I think I want to keep it going from the title page, then copyright page. So the TOC would start on page 3. So I'm going to have increment number, but I do want to specify the format in here. So I'm going to select Roman, lower Roman, and click OK. Now we start with our chapters. And I am going to select this one right here. And if I were to double click it, it would just expand it. So instead of that, I'm going to click on this chapter auto number topic node right here once and select this button. It'll open up the properties. This one is a chapter. And so I'm going to select chapter break, and it is using the chapters page layout, page type. There's only normal in there. I am using the page numbering. I'm going to increment, so it's going to continue from the TOC page, the numbering, but I don't want to use the Roman numerals. I want to use decimal. So I'm going to select that. So it will switch at that point. Click OK. Go to the next chapter in here, open up the properties, and I'm going to select chapter break again in here because it is a chapter, and we're also going to have auto numbering. So that is the indicator that, oh, you finished one chapter, now you're on to the next one. I'm going to increment the chapter auto numbering. Select my chapters page layout. It's a normal page type. It's just going to increment. I'm going to keep the format to default. That should continue the decimal page numbering. And now that I have those two set, I can now leverage what I've done here with chapter 2. I'm just going to make a copy of that and paste it. And it pastes it down there. I'm going to move it back over here, expand it, delete this part of it, and I'm going to rename this to chapter 3. And I'm going to copy that, paste it, and rename that to chapter 4, move it back over here, and now I'm going to move procedures up into here, move this over underneath it, and company information is going to be chapter 4 right there. So chapter 3, chapter 4. And those are the settings for my chapters. Now get down here to appendix. And appendix has big freaking table under it. It is linking to this topic right here. Okay, so I am going to open up the properties for that. Page, the break type, what do I need? Well, it's not a chapter. Auto numbering, don't have to worry about that. Page numbering, yeah, there's going to be using page numbering, but it's really just going to increment and you continue to use the decimal. So I could just select page layout break and select my appendix. Now I've got my two appendix page layouts, the appendix and the landscape. This one I'm going to start with the regular one, so it's going to be portrait. And it is the normal page type. Keep the rest of that. Okay. So in order to get the content split so that it is showing, let's open up that big freaking table topic. It has a few paragraphs here under the heading, and then it's got my table. So what I'm thinking is once you go to the appendix, the first part of it is going to be the heading down to this third paragraph, and that's going to be portrait. Now, once you get to the table, that'll switch to landscape. So what I'm going to do, instead of using this one topic, I am going to split it into two topics. And so one topic will have the heading down to the third paragraph, and the second topic will have the table. But because this particular topic might be used also in online output, what I'm going to do, in that case, I don't want to break it into two. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is I'm going to create a couple of snippets in here so that I, have my content in just one place. Now, so the first snippet, I could select the heading all the way down to here. Sometimes it's beneficial to have the heading in the snippet. Sometimes it's beneficial to not have it in there. I'm just going to make a snippet of these 3 paragraphs right here. I'm going to use that approach. And I am going to go to the home ribbon and say create snippet. I'll keep it in the regular snippets folder, and I'm going to call this big freaking table text like that and create that. Now the table, I'm going to right click on the table structure bar and say create snippet. And this time I'm going to just call this big freaking table, put it in the same location, create, save that. So here are my snippets right down here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this topic and I'm going to paste it down here under print only, because the topic up here under more information, that's going to be used now just for my online output, but I'm going to have my two topics under here for my print only. I'm going to make another copy of this topic down here, paste that, and I'll rename that one to big freaking table text. So I know what snippet it's got in there, and that's the first part of that topic in the print output. So I'm going to open this one, and because that one is the big freaking table text, I want to get rid of my table there, and then open up the other one, and that's the opposite. I want to get rid of the heading and that first snippet, and that's just my table. Okay, so go back to my Outline TOC. Now this topic, this node right here is pointing to this topic, so I need to change that. I'm going to drag in this text one first, and I'll rename this so that I know that that is the text part. Freaking table text, that is so much fun to say. Get rid of this other one and drag this guy down below. All right, so the content is split into these two topics. So I set my page layout break on the chapter auto number and told it this is going to use the appendix page layout, the portrait one, and this topic will continue to use the same thing. It'll just continue to use the same thing until you tell it otherwise. Here is where I want to change it. So I'm going to double click on this one, which just holds the table, and I'm going to create a page layout break. And this time I'm going to tell it use the landscape. It is normal page type. Don't have to worry about the numbering. It's just going to increment decimals. Click OK. Final one is index. Open up the properties for that. This one, again, I can just select page layout break and select my index page layout. I am starting with the first page type because remember, in the index, it has the heading first, then the 3 columns, and then the subsequent pages, the normal page types, are just going to have the 3 columns. So I'm selecting first here, and I'm going to keep the auto number or the numbering the same. It's going to increment, decimal, click OK. So what's going to happen is it's going to start off using that first page type. And then if my index goes to 2 or more pages, then it'll just keep using the normal one after that. And that's all we need to do. Click Save. So that part is set up, but I did talk about the chapter auto numbering, and that's the next thing that we want to tackle in this. We have most of the work done for our Outline TOC, but as you saw before, we set the chapter breaks on chapters 1 through 4, and we said these are going to use auto numbers. Well, the TOC was also set as a chapter break, and what we don't want is to accidentally end up with that being counted as chapter 1, and then this is chapter 2. So we just want to assure ourselves of that. So I'm going to open up the properties once again for chapter 1. And this time I'm going to go to the Auto Numbers tab, and you have chapter numbers, volume numbers, section numbers that Flare lets you do. We're only concerned about chapter numbers. Well, I'm going to click in here and select Reset to 1. And format, I am going to make sure that it is decimal and click OK. Now for chapters 2, 3, and 4, open up this one. On the Auto Numbers tab, it is already set to increment. So that'll be chapter 2. and then it'll continue with the decimal numbering. And 3 and 4 were copies of that. So those are already done. We're finished. And so and we'll save. And so once we get to the point where we're building the output, we should see the chapter numbers behaving properly. So then we're getting closer. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to get a target so that we can build our output. But before we build it, we need to provide some settings in that. And that is what is in the next video.